Hey everyone, and we
Mm.
want to welcome you to our webinar today. We're excited to have Phil Gautrin from Generix Group joining us today. And today's session is called New Implementation Methodologies for a Remote World. And before I pass it over to Phil, I'd like to remind you that this session is being recorded and will be posted to our on-demand webinar library for you to review and share with anyone. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to type them into the questions box. We'll make sure to get those answered after the presentation during our Q&A session. But I think other than that, I think we're ready to go. Phil, are you all set?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks.
No problem.
Thanks for the quick intro and hello to everyone. I'm Phil Gautrin. I'm the CEO of Generix in North America, and we are very pleased to be on this webinar with you guys as we're partners on many projects with some of our key clients. Hopefully there won't be too much noise as we're many of us working from home. I've got some kids that are attending in college, and they're not attending college, but they're remote. So hopefully it won't make too much noise. So what we wanted to talk about today is how did we adapt our approach to the COVID situation, where traveling has become a very difficult thing to do, and if ever we're able to travel, still clients may not be open to receiving visitors, and therefore it does have a significant impact on our ability as a company to implement our solution. So we clearly had to do something because well, after a few weeks in March, we quickly realized that that was going to be something that we're going to be faced for a few months. So we'll quickly start with a brief intro of who we are, Generix, as a company, and then we'll talk about what change management. What is it? Why should we do it? And what requires us to do it over time? And in this situation, it was a crisis and a need for action. And then we'll talk about the how we've adapted our methodology of project, and we'll narrow down on the implementation aspect. So whenever we go live for WMS, we tend to have a significant team that is on site with the client on different shifts, on weekends if need be. And clearly this is something that we had to review, because since March we've done already 3 go lives, and we intend to do more of these. And then we'll wrap it up, and if there's any questions, well, they'll be more than welcome. So quickly, Generix, we're a supply chain software developer, and we also implement our solutions. We do it through partners and integrators, but also through our team of consultants that are in different offices throughout the world. We've been in business for over 20 years. We today have more than 600 employees, of which more than 125 are in North America. We are quickly growing into this market. We've been in the market for many years as well, developing and then implementing solo chain, which I'll talk about later. But a clear acceleration over time as the company is investing significantly into this market. Thousands of clients, 6,000 clients running either WMS, TMS, EDI solutions, or electronic invoicing, so different solutions for different players in the supply chain industry. We were present, as I said, in throughout the world in many countries. What you see in orange is where we have offices and then partnerships in place, and in whatever is not in orange and that you see in dark green is wherever we've got clients. So we have some in throughout the Americas, in throughout Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia. So pretty broad reach with many clients that are in different industries. 2 years ago, we were finally, we would say, introduced into the Magic Quadrant, and it came through as we significantly increase our presence in North America, which was required to be in that quadrant. And so we're part of the leaders with others that some of you may know, and we're being recognized for our approach, for our pretty easy to use and easy to configure solution that we have, as well as the tools that we provide people to implement and then manage the relationship with us. So we've got pretty strong tools on that side, and somewhat unique MES, WMS, which is manufacturing and warehousing solutions that are embedded one into the other, which allows the light manufacturing companies and 3PLs to get a lot of benefits from our solutions. Some of our clients across the world are, as I said, in many industries, a lot in the food industry, the retail, whether it's food, hardware, or whatever, and then manufacturing companies, again, in many sectors, the life science industries, textile, luxury, obviously in Europe, this is something that's big. And then bottom right, many companies being 3PLs and 4PLs even, managing operations on behalf of their clients, whether they are in Russia, in the US, in Brazil, or in Europe. We're partnering with these companies, very large companies. If we drill down into North America, some of the clients or logos that you guys may recognize, again, pretty diversified from food manufacturing to retail, to hardware, as well as 3PLs. We're currently working on 2 projects with Innovia, Kong, so food, so toys for dogs, and ACP, which is acoustic panels for the offices. So quite a few clients, as you can say, and it's growing pretty quickly. So let's get into our subject. So we want to introduce it on the change management side, and change has been around for many years. We all talk about change. We all say we're good at adopting change and everything, even though in many cases, I'm sure some of you can say, well, in that case, I did resist a change, and I was not a leader in the change, whether it's in your personal life or professional life. Whenever there's a need for change, typically it's because there is somewhat of a disruption in the process. And whenever we're faced with these disruptions, we only have 2 choices. Either we adopt a change and it's a voluntary change, or we react and then we have no choice but to adapt, because it's in many cases it's you need to adapt or you're going to disappear pretty much in your industry. I won't talk about Amazon, but Amazon clearly is an example of these. There's been others before. Walmart was one. Whenever the car came as well. The IT industry has been also a significant disruptor in many processes, accelerating the rate and the pace of change. And we clearly position ourselves as an enabler for change in the industry and with the clients that we serve. So we, as a company, we were often talking about change to our clients, trying to convince them of the need for change, and as you guys, sometimes having to change as well. But we were not, at least in the past years, faced with a drastic need for change like the one that we've had to deal with COVID, our dear friend COVID-19. So well, this guy clearly disrupted the model that we know and that we were building upon. Our approach was to build close relationship with the clients in the implementation phase and even afterwards as they're managing the operations. And we were trying to, if anything, increase the touch points with the clients to understand their operations much faster, to be able to live in their environment and quickly understand and identify gaps, if any, that we could solve and bridge with our solutions. And by mid-March, it became clear to us and I'm sure all of you that that things were changing and were eventually going to change for a while, as travel was being well, not possible anymore. If ever we were traveling, we had to put ourselves in quarantine, and clearly we could not just sit around and say, okay, we'll let the weather pass and then we'll pick things back up again, because our clients, for some were stopped, but for many, because they were in the essential services, for food, for life science, and others, had to keep working and also had to keep improving the operations. The reality of COVID-19 accelerated some changes within the organization, and for others, it put the light on a few inefficiencies that you quickly had to find solutions for. And therefore, some of our clients that were in a project mode that had slowdowns told us, okay, we need to accelerate the project because we want to get the benefits faster. Others that were already running with systems said we need to quickly adapt to these changes, to do more e-commerce, to ship our goods differently or open up other warehouses, and therefore were in need for quick changes in their operations. And so to do all these things, we had first to realize that the way we were doing things previously and the way we were training our teams and so on had to be challenged and had to be reviewed drastically. So there was a bit of a reality check for us at first. And then as we did that, we needed to obviously get the trust of the client, because it's good to, a system by itself, as some of you, I'm sure, have lived through system changes, is a big journey and a significant change in an organization. Whenever you change your methodology from one day to the other, you need to convince the client that, well, first of all, you did your homework, you did your sanity check, and that the client can now trust you because you're not only well equipped, but you also have taken all the measures to make sure this was going to work. Obviously, in our current situation, it was hard for us to demonstrate that we had done it many times before, even though already a significant portion of our work was done remotely on projects. And therefore, for many aspects of our work, we already had the tools, had the means to do so. So moving on into the project aspects, a typical WMS warehouse management system implementation, we say, is between 4 to 6 months. We'll take 6 months as an example, and you can see the breakdown and a few touch points that you can imagine as at first we need to understand the operations, then conduct workshops, and afterwards move into some training and testing. Many needs for contacts and discussions with the client. So as we were not able to do so, and we had projects in different stages, we did take a step back and said to ourselves, okay, which are the steps that that we were doing in the past that need or that needed very intense or close relationship and interaction with the client. These are in blue. It was everything about understanding the operations, the process review, the interfaces, and the workshop at the early stages of the project. And then as the project is coming to tuition, all the aspects of training of the super users, sometime assisting the client with the testing and the integrated testing, and obviously the go live. So these were three big stages in the projects where we needed to be closely working at the client location in many times because we were well, we needed not only to work as a team, but also we needed to do some knowledge transfer as we did that. First of all, us understanding your operations, and then afterwards us transferring to you our knowledge and the knowledge of the application. And clearly these blue, dark blue steps have an impact on others. If we're not able to have a good understanding of the operations and the specificities of your DC or your DCs or your sites, it's much tougher for us to configure the system and to identify the gaps and to close these gaps in a short amount of time of a project. And therefore, we said to ourselves, if things are not done as they were before, most likely there's going to be an impact on these other activities as well. And therefore, what we did afterwards was to say, well, what can we control in a project? What is our role and responsibility? How do we do the resource planning? How can we adapt that process and do as we are managing multiple projects at the same time? And how do we communicate differently if need be with the client? On the other end, we needed to understand similar aspects, but on the client side, and to make sure that the key people were even more made available to help us work in a remote fashion. Some of the things that you could bridge over time with on-site presence was clearly more difficult to do remotely. Training being one of them, and everything about implementing the change afterwards. So having said that, we first of all we identified and we introduced new project and communication tools. We realized that and had to convince the clients, but since everybody was living through the same crisis, it was easier to convey the change as well. We had to convince them that it was going to take more time to collect the information because we were remote, and their input was going to be even more critical to this. That the third point being and again, you've all lived that. Spending 8 hours in front of your computer is already difficult by itself. When you're home and with kids and dogs and everything, it's even more difficult. And attending an 8-hour workshop is just impossible because people are not able to maintain their attention span for such a long time. So we had to break down our methodology to account for these inefficiencies that we were all living through, and the training as well becomes more complex as we get into these remote operations. An example for the point number 2 of collecting the information. One thing that we did was to equip and to request that our client film their operations. So it's pretty much living a day in the life of a picker and a receiver and a shipper to pretty much see everything that they can run into, and that has proven to be beneficial. initially we said, okay, that's going to be, if we can't make it on site, that's going to be second best, is to have a video of the operation. What our teams are finding is that they're able to replay and replay these videos over and over, and sometimes identify or see things that they might not have seen in a 1 day or walkthrough of a warehouse or of an operation. So again, we've seen some benefits of these remote tools or methodologies that we're going to be carrying over whenever we're able to travel as well. We'll do the same again. And we also looked at where is there an impact from all these aspects. There's obviously an impact on the project schedule. We all quickly came to the conclusion that doing an average projects in 4 to 6 months was going to be very difficult, and there was going to be an impact on delays. In terms of cost, limited impact on cost. Indeed, you spend more time on the project, but on the other end, you save on traveling. And in some projects, it can be pretty expensive, all the traveling and the expenses. And therefore, overall, we have not seen significant increases in project costs. In terms of quality and agility, we've been, and our clients as well have been able to quickly adapt, and so far we're not seeing any impact on the end result of the projects, which is a good thing. So now, if we look at the impact of these changes, of the time changes, what you're seeing appearing is the added length that we've given each of the activities or the tasks to occur. Some are just taking longer, others are taking a similar duration, but have just moved over time or pushed because of a typical start to finish impact of tasks. And that's pretty much the impact that we've seen is our typical average projects. Some people may not want to admit it, but there's at least a 1 or 2 month impact on a project being done remotely. We may work on, we're brainstorming on ways to reduce that, but that's been the impact that we've seen so far on the project duration. And in many cases, the clients themselves are also asking us to slow down the pace, because they're still in a resource scarcity mode. They're still having to deal with personal struggles and with the COVID, and therefore the rhythm at which we can go has been impacted. So moving on from the schedule into some examples of changes we've made. Well, since you cannot see each other face to face, in many cases you need to focus even more on the quality of your communications. We did review all of the touch points that we're having with clients, whether they are daily, whether they are weekly, or steering committees, to ensure that the right information was being conveyed, that the right attendees were in these meetings, and that we also provided the visibility to our clients through a portal. I mentioned to you that one of the our strength is as a portal that we have to manage pretty much the client or the project life cycle with us, and that tool has really been a good help in making us able to share information with the client and to exchange and track the projects. In terms of if we're more putting ourselves into a project startup or a go live now, some of the The changes we've also made is to ensure that we've got a very detailed schedule as to when we have touch points, with who we have these touch points. It seems to be basic things, but when everybody's on site, it's much easier to say, okay, let's call a meeting now, and you just grab a few people from the floor and do a meeting, a stand-up meeting in front of a problem. Whenever you're remote, you've got the client and the vendor and the consultants are remote. We all need to come together quickly, and therefore need these pre-scheduled or predefined touch points, whether they are internal to the team, with the management, and everything. As you communicate and as you would do in a war room in a project at a client site, where you would have papers on every wall with schedules, with action item lists, and with issues and so on. We need pretty much to replicate these war rooms through our different communication means. And one of the things we decided to do was to color code our communication, in which we said, well, every time we're using green, it's because we are relating to such type of message. Whenever it's red, orange, and other colors, as well as formatting the information to make sure that people can quickly find and identify the issues and the information that they need to go through. One thing we did as well to, again, replicate what you would do in a war room is to have somewhat of a Kanban or visual posting of the actions items, and with classification as to what needs to be worked on immediately, what is a hot topic, which is urgent, what is currently in customer QA, what have we found that has not been brought from the floor or from the operations yet, but we know is going to be an issue, and whatever code change that we may be doing that we need to think about or to put on the in a parking lot, that we'll go back to after once the dust settle of the go live. I did mention to you early into the presentation that attending an 8-hour workshop was something that was pretty difficult for our clients as well as our consultants. We also quickly identified that it was going to be a challenge for these individuals to be in front of their computers in an high alert mode, I would say, during a go live, and to be always at their top shape. Just like air traffic controller in an 8-hour day, they need to take breaks and to change their mind. We acknowledge that, and we pretty much defined some 4-hour time slots in which we would have the teams, and therefore what we typically used to do a 10-hour shift on the day and on the night or evenings, having 2 crews. We pretty much staggered these 2 crews over the shifts to ensure that we were going to provide the sufficient rest time to our people to be very efficient and providing quality work with the client. So that requires a bit more resources during the go live, because you don't want to put too much strain on your key people. But it allowed us to have a full coverage of all the shifts. I'm giving an example of a project we did. That we did back in June. We did a go live in Wisconsin in a company that had many sites, manufacturing and distribution sites. A project that had been going on for a few months. They were supposed to go live in March of this year initially, and when the COVID arrived, they they initially said that they wanted to postpone to, well, to an unknown date, pretty much. And then as their business had a big impact because they're in uh, in the hotel and restaurant industry. As you can imagine, in the early months of the COVID, there was a big impact for their sales. And therefore, their level of activity was so low that they said, well, even though we are remote, this is a unique moment that we'll most likely never live, or hopefully never live through. And therefore, it's the best time for us to go live and to, with that very small activity volume. And as the operations will pick back up, we'll be in a much better shape going forward. Continuing on into other go live examples, I won't go through the entire list. You guys can read it through. But again, for whether it's an internal client exchange on different issues, whether it's a follow-up on the objectives of daily objectives, we reviewed all of these communications or touch points, made sure that they were clear and that they were efficient, and also identified who was the stakeholder, who should be on the distribution list, and so on. All things that appear very simple and normal to do on a project, but that carry even more importance whenever you're remote and you're not able to see and talk to each other pretty easily. So overall, what did we have to do? Well, we, on the client side, they also had to review the way they are managing people and then assigning resources to the projects. I did mention to you that we had a staggered and an increased team for the go live on the vendor side. Same thing on the client side, and we're seeing that at different stages of projects going forward. We see that clients are, even though they may be struggling for resources, clearly understand that they need to have more than just one super user or a few. They need backups. They've seen how sensitive their operation can be to people calling in sick. And well, some also have more time since they're working remotely to be part of these projects. So every client is different, obviously. Roles and responsibilities also had to be reviewed on the client side. Again, they're not able to conduct these meetings as they might have been able to, or to go on the floor and then check with the operators whenever we have questions on processes. So again, these are all things that needed to be reviewed and to be challenged. And we're talking about that client I mentioned to you before. So there might be, even though at first it doesn't seem natural to do a remote go live, might be good windows of opportunities because there's more attention given to this go live, because there's less volume. We've already done three go lives since March. One in the manufacturing industry of multi-site, one with the 3PL in the Chicago area, and another one in the hardware industry in Canada. And they've all gone well. They all had well, challenges, obviously, like any go live, but we've been able to I would say minimize, if not not even feel the impact of being remotely through all these tools and communication points that have been put together. And we're bringing them all these good habits and all these things we've learned from go lives into project modes. I did talk to you about Kong and ACP. These two projects have started during the COVID era, if we can talk about that. Hopefully it's not an era that lasts too long, but during these times. and we've launched these projects remotely. We're conducting the workshops remotely, and the clients are able to adapt quickly, and hopefully, because we're changing everything from day one on these projects, how we conduct meetings, how we do workshops, and everything. Potentially, we can even imagine that change management, going back to the first slide, we can imagine that change management may be easier because we're all setting ourselves into a new environment and a new working methods. What you see here on this screen is examples of daily KPIs that we are tracking during go lives. We've really put a lot of effort into providing feedback and information to the operations, to our teams, as well as to stakeholders, to quickly see if we're progressing as planned, if we've got issues, if so, what are they? Are they critical issues, or they're low priorities, and how are we progressing towards the client? It's good to be improving. It's good to be addressing the issues. But what's critical to your operations is that you deliver your clients the orders that they've passed to you, and therefore we need to be tracking towards that objective. As you know, and then doing a remote go live is no different. There is an impact, and there is a few days, if not sometimes weeks, depending how quickly we adopt a change, during which there's going to be a drop in productivity and a drop in efficiency, and we need to plan and prepare for that with either pulling orders prior to the go live so that we can ease up the operations, or managing expectations, or adding resources. But there is an impact. So how do we deal and how do we track the progress is critical. So if we want to conclude, and then we can open it up for question. So again, we were put in front of an urgent need to change, to adapt our methods, and to review our paradigms, and to challenge ourselves to find new ways to do projects, because we had, first of all, clients that were already running our systems that needed our support. We also had projects that were ongoing where clients wanted to get the benefits from the systems, and we also need to be able to convince potential clients, ACP being one, and Kong, that they would eventually take the right decision to launch a project at this time, and to venture in these pretty labor and change intensive projects. We clearly, as we did that, needed to identify where were the biggest impacts of that change, and find solutions to address these gaps, and identify who should be involved. So we've going forward, we decided to specialize some people, to also review some of the roles and responsibilities of our project teams, to be more agile, to adapt to that change, and to ensure that we're providing that service to the client. So having said that, that pretty much wraps it up with this presentation. I pretty much touch on all these topics of whether it's communication, whether it's transferring knowledge, the human aspects of things are now integrated into this new remote approach. Going forward, we're not saying that we'll never go back to any of our clients. Far from that. We're eager to go back and see our clients and potential clients, but we've clearly identified ways of doing things differently that can benefit the current situation, as well as future projects that we would be doing, where traveling may not be as required as it used to be, or potentially not as easy to do as we're seeing now. So again, I then accept change and adapt to the change to to build trust, that you can do it, that you can also convince the client that that this is going to work, and that they can rely on their people and on their project teams to deliver the expectations, because such systems bring significant value to logistics operations. And if anything, I think we all realize, maybe we all knew it, the ones that are attending this presentation, but many others realize how critical the supply chain can be, and how critical logistics operations are to well, to everybody's life. And products don't just appear on shelves in retail stores. There is an entire process, a supply chain behind that, which has been recognized as being critical and an essential service, and therefore we do foresee that these projects will just be even more well required, or easier, hopefully, to justify to your top management as being an absolute need to be efficient to cope with any future change or crisis. So thank you very much. I'll open it up to questions and to comments, or maybe potentially also shared experience. I'm sure everybody that's on the line did have some changes in their operations and good things that they want to share. So open to questions.
Thank you, Phil. And just a reminder, there is the questions box in the corner of the screen. If you have any questions as we get going, I do have a couple that have come in that we can kind of get started with. But again, feel free to add more as we go, and I'll keep an eye on that. We do have a question that says, are you currently using this project methodology model, or is it in a theoretical stage?
We're currently using it. You know, I did talk about these 3 clients that we went live with. We've also launched since then many projects. We've none of the projects that were ongoing were stopped, and we've also been able to sign and to start projects. So today we've got over 15 projects that are being managed in this manner.
Great. And kind of similar to that, are there elements to the remote implementations that you think are better than not any improvements to the old ways that you've seen?
Yeah, quite a few, and I'm sure we haven't seen all of them yet. I've talked about the videos that we've asked our clients to do in the exploration phase of a project. We were now able to get these videos and to look them over and to better understand the processes and the operations, and to go back to that footing in the test phase or even afterwards. This is one of the benefit. The other one I would say is that it's not the case for me, but not everybody likes to travel, and in some cases we had to convince and to convince our consultants and our technical people to travel and to go to the client location for a few days, to do long hours, stay in hotels. The fact that they can now conduct these projects from home is a benefit to some. I'm sure others may say that it's not a benefit, that they like the travel aspects of their work. But overall, I think people appreciate the fact that when you do a big or long day at work, that you can sleep at home and have your family around you brings a lot of benefits. So that would be the second one. And the third one I would say is that it opened up the client's responsiveness or openness to change. Everybody has been faced with a need to reinvent, some even more than others, and therefore, whenever we are challenging them on processes, on ways of doing things, talking about best practices, it's easier today to tell them, you know what, there's other ways to do things. What if you were to do it this way? We see that change management is going to be easier in some cases to do.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Phil. It looks like we're all set with questions, so I didn't know if you wanted to say anything else in closing.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us and providing us that tribune to do this presentation. It is something that, as I said initially, we had not forecasted or planned to do. It was not part of our strat plan this year to learn to work remotely. We had to cope with the need for change, the urgent need for change. And it is something that we've been able with our clients to do very well. We've exchanged also best practices with our other offices, whether they are in Italy, in Spain, in the Benelux, or in Russia, and therefore we've done more than 3 go lives today. It's more than 20 as a company, and we're quickly learning from these activities on how we can improve. We've also one thing we've explored in Russia and use are similar to the Google glasses. If you all are familiar to that, is how can we use the newer technology to provide the pickers and the supervisors or the super users with increased means to help us visualize their operations and their issues remotely. So if anything, we realize that the pace and the rate of change is going to accelerate, and some of the automation and the technology that was out there is going to be quickly adopted by a few, or by many, I'm pretty sure. So thank you very much. I don't know if you have any closing comments on your side.
Yeah, so thanks again, Phil, and thank you for making the time for our presentation today. And for everyone who's joined us, we want to thank you as well, whether you're watching live or on demand. We want to also let you know that we have a couple of other events coming up very soon. Next Tuesday after Labor Day, September 8th, Tracy Bretgenzer from Inovia Consulting will be presenting on easily send documents electronically to your customers with BC Now. That's at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Then the following day, September 9th, at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, KE Commerce will be sharing their presentation, Fast Tracking a B2B e-commerce launch during COVID-19. You can also check out, there's a whole lot more webinars coming up. You can find all of them and register at inovia.com/events, or view this or other webinars on demand. We also want to kind of point out that we have the Inovia podcast going on. It's called the Inovia Conversation. We hope you'll have a chance to listen. Our co-hosts are Steve and Jeff, although in our last episode, Jeff was on vacation, so Holly took over from our team. So that was a fun episode. You want to check that one out. They do about 2 episodes a month, and you can find it. You can find a listener for that, as well as all the different platforms. You can find it at inovia.com/podcast. And then coming up very soon, it's fall time, which means that Dynamics user group gatherings are coming. So next week, actually, September 9th through the 10th, Dynamics Con will be held virtually. It is a 2 full-day event of a Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central Nav content. and includes a session from Innovia. Bob Baird from our team will be presenting on what if your process is the problem. And then October 7th through 9th, Dynamic Community Summit will be held virtually. Innovia is proud to be a premier sponsor of this event, and I believe Generix is as well. So be sure to visit innovia.com/conferences to learn more, and you can also save on your summit registration with our code there. But I think that is everything. So thank you very much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you on another Innovia webinar. Thank you and have a great day. And thank you again, Phil.
Thank you. Have a good day.